Cool.
Whoever in
Is Corey frozen, Joe?
Corey's frozen.
I guess we should just welcome everybody while Corey's frozen.
Hold on, are we all here?
Yeah, we're all here. You're frozen.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Off and on.
Okay, nobody can see my face, so let's roll with this. But to the Stanley Cup Final post-game edition. Gentlemen, I got Josh Yohe with The Athletic alongside, and Joe Bartnick, comedian extraordinaire. And we'll talk about
Pittsburgh Improv July 10th.
Yes,
the plug-in early.
Pittsburgh Improv July 10th and Boston Comedy Studio August 23rd.
There you go.
And we'll talk about Evgeny Malkin and Josh's story the news he broke. But let's get into the Stanley Cup. It just finished. Florida Panthers win in 6. The last 2 games, really, no doubt about it. I mean, it was pretty evident. And Josh, I'll throw it to you first. Does this significantly hinder the Connor McDavid legacy? You know, he still's got legacy to write, but all the people that want to put him with Mario and Bobby Orr and Wayne Gretzky, what do you say to going no show here again?
Well, there's a part of me that genuinely feels bad for him because he's one of the greatest hockey players we've ever seen, and to get that close 2 years in a row, and to run into what I think might be one of the great teams of all time, that's tough. But the fact is, Joe, he was a no-show tonight. I mean, he was invisible. He wasn't very good in Game 5 either. And when you go back to last season, as great as he was getting them back into that series, he was a no-show in Game 7 last season as well. That is part of his legacy. The fact is, Mario, Gretzky, when the cup was that close within their grasp, they didn't get shut down like that. Now, you could say, well, they didn't play a team that great, and that might be true. But I think to call McDavid the greatest of all time or to put him with Mario and Gretzky, he probably needs to win one. And yet, to me, the story of this night is just the Florida Panthers. That was an unbelievable performance, Joe. What they did in the third period with the lead, like, my God, they just completely shut them down.
Josh, I'm glad you said that because I want to celebrate the Florida Panthers. I think their performance tonight and all in this whole postseason and last year was what everyone should be talking about. I know it's the ESPN glorification that we have to pick one person and everybody bitch or exude that person. But the Florida Panthers, let's give credit where credit's due. Let's give credit to Sasha Barkov. Yeah. He should have got the Conn Smythe last year. He's the guy that shut down McJesus. Yes, let's give him the credit. And yes, Jesus did not show up, and I don't want to hear the excuse of, I don't want to hear, I believe Florida is a great team. Maybe, sorry, Sid, sorry, Mr. Kane. And I don't mean cheap shot Evander Kane, who will never put his name on the cup. I mean, Patty Sugar Kane. And sorry, Steven Stamkos, but maybe the best dynasty of the post-lockout era is the Florida Panthers. That being said, Mario Lemieux beat the Chicago Blackhawks. Wayne Gretzky beat Trottier and Bossy.
That's right.
So they don't. You don't play the Anaheim Ducks to get to the Stanley Cup.
No,
so he has nobody. He could make other people better. But like I said, let's not make this about Jesus. Let's make this about pure, absolute dominance, top to bottom, 4 lines. Because really, as great as Barkov and Reinhart had the grand salami tonight in Carter Verhaeghe, the second line, even with Erod on it, is not. It's Bennett and Tkachuk. Here's who have scored as many goals in the who's scored as many goals in the finals as Bennett did. Lemieux, Gretzky, Crosby. That's the list. I'm sorry, Josh. Third line: Lundell, Esseterin, and the rat. In that fourth line, the perfect fourth line, guys that just go out there and crush skulls. I mean, there's no drop. It is literally a machine. And then you have the defense. All those guys are all these guys are top 4 defensemen, if not top pair defensemen. And you have a goaltender going to the Hall of Fame. So it's just an incredible team. And Paul Maurice and Bill Zito. Zito, I know it's midnight. She get all the credit in the world. And, we have all the next 10 years to say, why didn't Connor win a cup? But tonight it's time to celebrate. I will celebrate my pick, the Florida Panthers.
Both of you guys picked them. I mean, I'm the curse of the Edmonton Oilers because I picked against them every round until the Stanley Cup final. And I finally was like, you know what? I think they're just going to do it. But to talk about what the Florida Panthers did over the last 3 years, Tampa, I mean, I've said this multiple times on this show. It was a COVID bubble championships in my mind don't count. So that one, whatever. Then they played a 50-game season, won a Stanley Cup. Then they played another one, won a Stanley Cup. Congratulations, or almost won a Stanley Cup again. Florida, 3 full seasons. I mean, going through teams like Boston a couple of years ago was a really good team. They've taken down some giants, and then they faced McDavid twice in the final and shut them down.
Well, they've won 11 of their last 11 of 12 series they've won, and what they did in the last 2 games, I was blogging for The Athletic earlier tonight, and I wrote, the first 4 games of the series is one of the greatest Stanley Cup finals ever. Then the Florida Panthers decided, that's enough of that bullshit. This thing's over, and it tells you something about them. That you blow a 3-0 lead at home in Game 4, you lose in overtime, then you have to fly back to Edmonton and play in less than 48 hours. And most teams would have crumbled in that situation. For them to show up and play their best game of the season in Edmonton, and then they go back home and do what they did tonight, that tells you the kind of character and the kind of mental toughness that you're talking about. And yes, there's a lot of Hall of Famers on this Florida team, starting with their head coach and their goaltender and right on down. But the mental toughness that it takes to do what they did in the last 2 games, that's an extraordinary thing. And I don't even know where to start with tonight. Reinhart scored 4 goals. I know 2 of them were empty netters, but still, he scored 4 goals in the clinching game. That's incredible. But you mentioned Barkov, who kind of, I don't know if anyone ever appreciates his subtle brilliance, but to do what he did. And Bobrovsky was awesome. And Tkachuk is playing hurt, and he still scored the second goal. That you kind of knew then that the Oilers were in serious trouble. Right on down the line, Sam Bennett, I think a very worthy Conn Smythe winner. He's going to become a fabulously wealthy man. Marchand was awesome again tonight. I don't know if they can keep him, but they'd be wise to. He certainly fits in with what they do. And it's way too early to start talking about this, but other than Bobrovsky and Marchand, this team's they're also in their 20s. I'm not saying they're going to win it all again next year, but I'm telling you there's a chance, and I don't know that I'd bet against them. That this is just a rare team. We've not seen a team like this in a really long time.
No, Josh, and you know what? Not only are they ultra talented and ultra competitive and big and mean and tough and have leadership, they are so well coached. You never see a bad pinch. There's never 3-on-1 the other way, 2-on-1 the other way, and their D is always jumping in. And the head of responsibility, the Barkovs, the Tkachuks, the Reinharts, the Bents, they're the ones back guarding the point.
Mm-hmm. No. Right. How about the first 10 minutes of the third period, Joe? They're up 3-0. There was one whistle in the first 10 minutes of the third. They didn't ice the puck once. They didn't give up one odd man rush. They didn't turn the puck over once. It was just clinical hockey. And I was thinking to myself, Paul Maurice's fingerprints are all over this. That guy is a great coach. And for them to be as disciplined as they were when the game was on the line, this how good defensively they were. And as great as this series was, as entertaining as it was, when you look back at it, Edmonton won 2 games that went to overtime. They never beat them in regulation. It was more one-sided than maybe we realized. And amazingly, it was the Maple Leafs that took Florida to a Game 7. They're the only team that did. And just maybe Toronto, let's just roll it all back and do the same thing. We were that close.
I saw a ton of comments from Toronto fans saying, please don't let the management see this and think, oh, yeah, let's just run it back. Let's keep going. We were the second best team.
They were up 2-0 with a 2-0 lead in game 3.
Yeah.
They let him off the mat. It really is insane. And I'll tell you what really just proved how just the Kings just collapsed. Because when you look at it, when you really get down to it, they're a two-person team. It's Leon and Jesus, because you can't. I mean, Corey Perry. It's like he played against Gordie Howe. Like,
I believe he did.
Yeah, like how do you have Corey Perry as the winger when it's McDavid and Draisaitl?
Yeah. Even Edzo noted at some point in the second period, I think, you might want to get somebody faster out there with them right now, because they need to do something different. They never did.
I was giving Nobla credit because I thought tonight he was wised up and put the ghost Casper with Evander Kane on the second line. I'm like, there's the only two guys that can match up with the top 9.
Yeah. I mean, it just. I thought we mentioned McDavid. I thought Leon was invisible tonight too. He was
one big hit. That was it. One big hit.
And I will say, I mean, listen, Florida's the deserving champion, clearly the better team. It was, however, classic NHL that in a series when they've been calling penalties left and right, no freaking power plays all night. Like McDavid was blatantly tripped in the third period. They didn't call it. Like the typical NHL. No, it wouldn't have mattered. It was Florida's night. But when you're Edmonton, you're so reliant on that power play, and they're calling everything all series. I'm sure there was a little bit of frustration there, because when it was all 5-on-5 hockey, it was very, very clear, especially with Draisaitl and McDavid on the same line. Like whenever they weren't on the ice, like Florida could kind of take a deep breath.
Well, that's where they really started to lose it to me, was their depth kind of carried them. Like McDavid and Draisaitl did not necessarily have they didn't have the years they had last year, obviously. So the depth really carried them, and all of a sudden the depth started to disappear. And I was like, oh boy, this might be over for Edmonton. And it ended up being over. What did you guys think of? This is a trend, and I'm not trying to make it about this, but good Lord, pulling the goalie with 7 minutes left. What are NHL teams going to do if they're down by 3? Just pull the goalie with 19 minutes left and let's just get it over with. You know what I mean? Let's let people beat traffic. What do you do?
I was mad because it took away Sam Reinhart tying Mike Bossy for the last time someone won 2 cup. So I was hoping they were going to score again, just get it back to a Reinhart goal, because I love having 2 cup clinching goals. Hadn't happened since Mike Bossy. To your point though about how the depth, I just think the third and fourth lines of Florida, and anytime they matched up against the third and fourth lines of Edmonton, were just so much bigger and tougher. And you got the ballerina Skinner going around there, and it's just like they're just going to get run over. And they did. They could not compete. You could just see the defense on Edmonton just really tonight wanted no part of anybody on Florida. I mean, they were just making mistakes of they didn't want to get hit anymore.
No, and it
looked like to me.
In the first 30 minutes of this game, Edmonton had the puck a lot. I didn't feel like they were necessarily being outplayed, but you could see how great Florida is in the middle of the ice. Even though Edmonton had the puck a lot, how many good looks did they really get? Perry had the one on the 2-1-1 he probably should have scored. But other than that, the way Florida, they're just so well schooled. And you said it, Joe, there's their size. The size on the blue line especially. And Seth Jones, who was so good all postseason, what a great addition he was. They are just so big and nasty in front of the net. McDavid could swoop around the net all he wanted, and he did, but there was really nothing there in front of the net when it mattered in this series, and I think that was very clear. So just a coaching clinic from Maurice, I felt. And you're right, the depth of the Panthers, it's one of their greatest strengths. It reminds me of the Penguins in 2016 when you had Phil Kessel on your third line. You had Brad Marchand on your third line. And Lundell, I mean, that's a great line. That's a first line on some teams in this league. It's a second line for almost every team. It's a third line for them. Eventually, that takes a toll on you. And I thought McDavid and Draisaitl looked tired. I thought McDavid really just didn't have his customary hop in the second and third periods. And we saw it last year, too. He played so much in Game 7, especially last year. He looked tired in the third period. We saw it again. And that's what Florida does. They just wear you down as a series goes on. They can beat you in so many different ways. I don't know that I've seen a team that can beat you in so many different ways as they can.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been since the old Islanders.
That's who they remind me
They
of.
could play you any way you wanted. You want to be tough? Oh, we'll be tough. You want to score? We'll score. They're going to lock it down. Like you want to freewheeling? We'll send Bossy and Trotz up there.
Yeah.
What I found, and plus I think Forsling was just so good on the back end.
He is.
I mean, but if him and Barkhoff are out there, I mean, it just frustrates the hell out of McDavid. And I mean, Zach Hyman would have to be, a cross between Gordie Howe, Mario Lemieux, and Jaromir Jagr to make that much of a difference in this series. But they did miss Hyman. That's not why they lost. I mean, he's good. He's not, he's not going to the Hall of Fame. But it really showed that they had no depth.
No. Certainly, and we mentioned it. Hey, Kapanen certainly played well in this playoff, but it's still Kasperi Kapanen. Okay. I mean, this is not a guy who's ever really put it together in the NHL, and he's still on their second line. And Evander Kane is a good player. He's not my favorite person in the league. I don't think he's anybody's favorite person. But I don't think he's quite the player he was 5 years ago either. And you go down the list. And Bouchard, who had a great postseason, boy, he couldn't have picked a worse time to have a more awful night. 2 turnovers on the first 2 goals. Just everything went wrong for the Oilers. You kind of knew when Tkachuk scored to make it 2-0 late in the first, like that. They blew a 3-0 lead at home in Game 4. I don't know if they're going to do it two times in one series.
And the night before, or not night before, Game 5, Ekholm was terrible.
Yeah, he was.
He was terrible.
There's something to be said too. Whenever we talk about like the Tom Brady gene, like I always say, when he can see a championship, he like the 28-3 comeback against Atlanta. He like once he got close, he's not letting it go. And I felt the same way after Tkachuk scored. I was like, I don't know. Like great teams, they find a way. The 2016 Pens, same thing. Like wasn't Letang's game-winning goal like shortly after? It was like
about a minute after the Sharks tied the game. It was the next shift, I think.
Yeah,
it wasn't. It didn't take long after.
No, and it was like you could just see between Sid and Letang on that shift, and they were like, "No, we're putting an end to this." And that's what I love seeing about teams, like just appreciation for the Florida Panthers. I really like watching this team play.
I think every real hockey fan does. I'll tell you one thing that I really enjoyed was they didn't boo Bettman. I thought that was great.
That's true. Yeah, you don't see that very often.
No,
they really didn't, did they?
They're just hockey fans.
Well,
it's like that's how ludicrous and jaded so many. Everyone's like, the Florida Sunbelt. They don't care about hockey. You know what? They're so happy to win the cup. They don't have time to boo Gary Bettman.
Well,
I'm curious what would happen in Pittsburgh if they ever won it here, because I think at this point we'd be so excited that they actually won it that you kind of forget to boo them.
There's no real reason to boo him in Pittsburgh. I mean, he's been pretty good to the Penguins in all honesty. But I will tell you, I've been covering games in Florida for 16 years. And for most of that time, when I'd be down there, there'd be maybe 10,000 people in the building, and a good 6,000 of them were wearing black and gold. And it's not like that anymore. That's what winning the cup does. But I'm telling you, the culture change down there is incredible. Everywhere you are in Sunrise or walking around the arena, all you see is Tkachuk jerseys and Barkov jerseys. I went to Joe's show in Boca Raton. There were hockey fans down there wanting to talk hockey with us. Like, it didn't used to be like that down there. It really didn't. It's always cool to see, a city become a hockey town. And South Florida, it's never been known for being the greatest sports town in the world. I get that, but I'm telling you, that is a region that is in love with the Panthers. If you go back, I don't usually look at TV ratings, but for the Four Nations games, West Palm Beach was in the top 10 in the United States in TV ratings. I saw that. I was like, wow, really? West Palm Beach? But hey, the Tkachuks were playing and whatever. That's a hockey town now. It really is.
Well, plus it was all the New Yorkers, people from Boston down there in spring break.
Part of it.
Down there in January. All the snowbirds.
Hockey.
Yeah. Well, it is totally fun to see like Panthers jerseys at the airport and all the major in Miami and in Fort Lauderdale and West Palm Beach. That is fantastic. No, it's never going to be the NFL. And once it's so but
People
it
are
can
wondering,
certainly be the
you know,
number
I
two. We
don't
we, we
understand
know
why.
a lot about having the number two, having hockey be the number two most important sport in a region. You know,
No, there's nothing wrong with that, Joe. You're right, and I give them so much credit, and what a well-run organization they are. Like you hear about the ownership down there, that's all players talk about, just how they're treated. Everybody wants to play there, and Billy Zito, who was born in Pittsburgh, by the way, I don't think there's a better general manager in the sport than that guy right now. And the thing about Florida, like their system's not bad. Like they have some good young players still on the way, believe it or not. Um, they're going to be a factor for a really, really long time. So congratulations to them. And that whole series, even though the last two games felt a little anticlimactic, that was a great celebration of hockey. Like that was really good stuff. Whatever it is that you like about hockey, whether it's goals, talent, star power, fights, like you name it, last second goals to send games to overtime. If you don't, if you don't like hockey after watching those games, you don't like hockey. That's just the way it is.
I thought taking out World Cup competition and Olympic competition, the four nations, I didn't think the four nations personally reached Olympic or World Cup competition, at least the 96 World Cup competition or Olympic competition. But I think that's the best hockey I've seen besides World Cup, Olympic, and Kings Blackhawks. I thought the first couple games of this Stanley Cup final, I thought it was that level of aggression and skill and speed.
Yeah. And it's funny. There's so many storylines. We don't even mention it, but I'm telling you, I know Matthew Tkachuk was playing hurt. I mean, that guy wasn't close to 100% to still score a couple of huge goals in the final. He's still kind of, I think, in a lot of ways, the face of that team, even though Bennett won the Conn Smythe and Marchand was a huge story and maybe Barkov's their best player, but that guy stole their heart, and he was playing hurt clearly. And the storylines, we've talked all this time, and we haven't even mentioned Bobrovsky, who is a no doubt Hall of Fame goaltender at this point. You could make an argument. I don't know if he's the best goalie in the world because he's playing behind the best team in the world, and that makes it easier. He looked a little shaky in the first 5 minutes of this game.
The first shot that he was looking for between his legs.
It was weird. I'm thinking, oh boy, he looks a little tight. But after then, I mean, it was lights out. He was sensational.
It was lights out. I will say, to turn this into a little Pittsburgh thing, though. Everyone gives Tkachuk gets all the credit, and I love Matthew Tkachuk. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but really, a lot of people in the know down there say the culture really changed. That's why he's beloved. Is when Mr. Patrick Hornquist showed up.
Yeah,
I know. I saw him on the ice.
Yeah, we saw him on the ice. Yeah.
Speaking of the ice ceremony, which I am a junkie for that. I think I watched to like the 15th person, 18th person, and I didn't want to set this up. It was nice that all the guys who hadn't won it before got to go first. I thought that was a real class. Yeah. I mean, that's an organization that knows what the hell they're doing.
I got real excited when Barkov took the cup over and they all surrounded him. I thought they were going to do the thing the Pens did in 91 and 92 where they follow the captain, the way that it was always done until this stupid made for TV. Hey, go take your little half circle and then hand it off to the next guy. But can we do away with the pyrotechnics? Like somebody's going to catch on fire during one of these celebrations. Like it's absurd. Did you guys see how massive that is? Like they're shooting fireworks off like it's a Kiss concert.
I didn't see that, but it's funny. A friend of mine, he texted right after our group text. He goes, am I old school? He's a Ranger fan. He goes, am I old school? But I liked it better when the team skated around with the cup together. And I said 1994 was a long time ago.
I always say that. I prefer. There are certain things in sports that, like, I don't know when that stopped exactly, but I enjoyed the pandemonium celebrations. I still like at the Super Bowl when they would introduce like an offense or defense, and the Patriots came out as a team and it just ruined everything, and everyone started doing that. It's bullshit. I don't like it at all.
See, I'm a junkie. I just love seeing the order of it. Like, in fact, I wish there was a Google site. Believe me, I wish I've Googled before. I just wish they had listed who gets what, who gets the cup in what order. I'm one of the. That's one of the only junkie kind of things I am.
I go to ChatGPT, you probably get it figured out.
Yeah,
make a list.
I love that. I do want to mention It's interesting. A couple of things on the handshake line. Not so much of a blowout this game was. We talk about the handshake line. One is Maurice didn't argue. He just went he looked over and now like he's okay. I'm not gonna. Or he went with the players. No big deal. No shots of Jesus going through the handshake line. What?
You didn't see him once. I almost I Googled on Twitter. I was searching his name to see if he left the bench, and I know he wouldn't do that. But they didn't show him once. I don't know if you saw that, Josh. They didn't show him at all.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I much prefer TNT's coverage to ESPN's. But some of the production tonight, they didn't show McDavid at all during that, which was odd. And I didn't need, in the second and third guys raising the cup, I didn't need Wayne Gretzky being interviewed talking about how great it is to win the cup. That was kind of weird. That's a little much. Just show the scene.
It was very Canadian. You always have to polish Wayne's ring.
Right. And you can't call him Wayne. You got to call him Gretz or Great One.
The other thing that just was pure disgusting was Kane just wanted to get thrown out of that game so that he wouldn't have to be in the handshake line. Just pure garbage.
That's exactly what he was. It was a chicken shit move. It really was.
If
you want to fight Kachuk, drop the gloves and fight him. If that's instead you're trying to break his arm by slashing him or listen, people in NHL circles, I don't think I've ever heard a nice word about Evander Kane.
Well, he's not. Why would you? He beats women.
Yeah, he does, and he's just. I've never heard a good word about the guy. He's not a good teammate, and you saw what he was all about there. And if I'm Connor McDavid, I'm going to the general manager in a few days. Get rid of that guy. I don't want him around anymore. Yeah. You're not going to. I want to say you're not going to win with people like that because they almost did. I'm not saying that's why they lost, but that I think he showed his character an awful lot there. And if you want to fight him, challenge him to a fight. Okay, if you're gonna slash him and skate away, Kachuk just looked at him get the hell out of here.
But the bottom line is too, though, Josh, is they didn't win it with him twice.
That's true.
So you're gonna. I mean, people are making changes everywhere in the NHL. I think they can make a change.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That was so godless. I'm sorry. And I guess I had some people tweeting at me that technically he's not allowed to take part in the handshake because he was thrown out of the game. I honestly don't know if that's a stupid rule, if that's the rule. But I don't think he's going to get in trouble with the league if he comes back out for the handshake, for God's sake.
No, because that's exactly why he did it.
I agree. I think it is too. What other? He knew he was going to get tossed. I'm sorry. I can't stand him. I've had some dealings with him over the years. He just after you talk to him, you just feel kind of dirty. He's not a good guy. Not a fan. And I will say, and I've dealt with the Panthers so much, and I'm supposed to be objective, but in my professional dealings with both teams, the Panthers are the most likable group. They really are. You spend 5 minutes with Matthew Tkachuk, you'll say, damn, I like this guy. I can't help it. His brother Brady was wearing an elbow room ball cap. Did you catch that, Joe? If anyone's been to Lauderdale, you've had a drink at the elbow room. Let's get wearing an elbow room hat. How great is that?
Yeah, I do think, though, I don't think he'll ever be taken seriously until he stops sitting next to his dad as his big brother wins Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
I think the first time it was fun. I think the second time you're in a private suite. I don't know. Maybe is it just me?
Well, no, it's not just you because it feels weird. But he I don't know what he does. I don't know what you would do in that scenario. You know what I mean? Because you're well, I want to watch the game with my family, but it was different. I remember whenever Peyton was watching Eli win the Super Bowl for the first time, and it's well, he had just won one, so that's fine. Right. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a weird bet. It doesn't really bother me, but what do you think with Brady though? If he watches in a suite without his family, there's going to be people saying, "Oh, why isn't he sitting with his family? What an asshole!" It's a tough spot.
Yeah, no, he's in a tough spot. It's just almost
it's got to be tough. Trade me out of Ottawa right now. Send me to a good team.
Yeah. I know. What do you call it? Philadelphia, the North.
But he can't come to Dubas because he can't come here. He's too good because we can't be good for another 10 years. We have to wait 10 years to get good.
Well, he just married a girl from Jersey last year, I think. So I could see Brady being a Philadelphia Flyer someday. He'd be the perfect captain there, wouldn't he? Todd would love him.
Makes me sick.
Yeah.
No, he's actually too talented, though. He's actually too talented to be a Flyer cap.
Let's bring him. Let's bring him to Pittsburgh. And not to belabor the McDavid stuff, but I don't know if I don't think this was. I didn't look at it too much, but Steve Levy said something that there's rumblings that if they don't win, McDavid's gonna say, hey, like, do I want to be here still? And I'm thinking to myself, you know what, Connor McDavid, like, I'm sorry, the Edmonton organization, we all saw it on Connor's face whenever they won the lottery. He knew he was doomed.
That's right.
So
He
if
didn't
I'm
want to go
Connor
there.
McDavid, I go in and I say, hey, why don't you send me to Pittsburgh? Why don't you send me to the Penguins? I can play with Sid for 2 to 3 years, maybe win a cup with him, and then I got 7 years to win one on my own afterwards. That's what I'd do if I was Connor McDavid. Because
he's too old. He's too old for Dubas's plan. He's too old.
just, I mean, Dubas might say that, but good. I mean, like, and I'm not, obviously it's a Penguin podcast, so I'm like, yeah, bring him to Pittsburgh. It makes sense for us.
I'm dead serious about. I'm a little tongue in cheek, but McDavid's all he's too old for Dan Muse can't teach him how to figure 8 skating drills.
Oh, I mean, and he is. I mean,
we went everybody from juniors. We went everyone. We still milk on their breath. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I heard our beloved Josh Yowie talking to the super genius, and now he's talking about getting rid of Rust and Raquel. Well, Jesus Christ! I mean, everyone's gonna be 13 years old.
Well, I will say this:
all their jock straps are gonna be medium sized.
You had to take it there, Joe. I like that.
Well, I understand if your next contract you're gonna be 40, okay, but your next, Rusty and Raquel, you still have to sell tickets. You still have to try to win hockey games. It's not a develop. You're not paying $100 to learn how to skate with Phil Bork in the summer,
which is great fun.
Yes, but and you get a tote bag and everything.
But now, listen, if I'm McDavid, here's the thing. I'm sure there would be an allure playing with Sid. You're only 5 hours from Toronto, your hometown. You're a couple of hours from Erie, where you play junior hockey. But if you're McDavid, you're probably looking at it and saying the Penguins are freaking terrible right now. Like, why would I want to go play? I know Sid's there, but what else is there? I mean, that would be the issue. I suspect he would, if he does want to go somewhere, he's probably going to want to go play in Chicago where they're much more accelerated on the rebuild at least, or there's probably better options for him to pick. But I do wonder if he'll want to stay there. I mean, Edmonton, with all due respect to the fine people of Alberta, is not a destination city. Let's be honest. They haven't really ever built a great team around him, even close. Let's be frank. Look at that team on paper and Florida on paper. It's no shock Florida won the series.
It's a stain on Kenny Holland, Josh.
It is. No, it is.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's a stain on Kenny Holland.
It is. It's not a great roster, and they've been there twice in a row now. We know how hard it is to get there 3 years in a row. Florida did it. But in the West, when you've got Dallas and Colorado and all these great teams, the odds are against him going back there next year. And he's in 18 months, he turns 30. And he'll be a free agent at that point, before then even. So I don't know. I always figured he would stay in Edmonton, especially after Leon signed the big deal to stay. I always figured it was kind of a pact between the two of them. But it's going to get interesting, and what a story that'll be next summer if he's available on July 1st. That changes everything.
Well, do they do the role that Sid always does, and Mike Tomlin, everybody? Like, are they going to try to extend him this summer? And
sure.
We might have your answer by training camp. If he hasn't signed an extension by training camp, maybe the writing's on the wall, and
it's gonna be the biggest circus since Tavares.
Yeah,
it's gonna be 10 times bigger than Tavares.
Yeah, and
he's gonna be enemy number 1 in Canada.
And my guess, guys, I would assume he'll sign, but given who he is, when you're the best player in the world, that comes with some power. And if the time comes 2 years from now, 3 years from now, when he's just done with Edmonton, he'll just order them to trade him, and they're going to have to do it. So that certainly could happen at some point. I actually thought, and I've had this thought, kind of like the LeBron thing, like it might have been easier for McDavid to leave Edmonton if he had won a cup there. If there was a part of him that wanted to leave, like LeBron, went back to Cleveland because he kind of knew he had to win a championship in the hometown just to say he did it. And then he left again because he didn't really want to be there. I got to say, like for McDavid, if he wins a cup in Edmonton, like most people can't bitch if he says, "Hey, I'm done." But if he never wins a cup, I understand that probably. I don't know if guilt is the right word, but I'm sure on some level it might be tougher for him to leave. That's a black eye on his legacy if he doesn't win a cup there and then he leaves.
This is a topic for the summer, or maybe just not right. Just not the 3 hours after the Stanley Cup final concluded, or 2 hours. But if you just see the way the salary cap is going up,
Yeah.
I mean, it may be a topic for in 30 minutes. We need Burkle back, because there's going to be teams spending to the cap are going to be spending like 140 million US, and that's like 190 million like Canadian or so. I know my math is a little off, but not very far off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Canadian conversions very well because of my child support, so I can tell you, Jeff. you spend about like, if 100 Canadian dollars is about like 74 or 75 American dollars. So yeah, that's
yeah. So
about it.
to compete, even let's say Jesus stays with Leon up there for the next 5 years, is Edmonton going to spend to the cap? I guess they're going to have to, but there's going to be super teams out there. Going to be the old days with the Red Wings, the Rangers, Toronto. Toronto still won't win, but there'll be 5 or 6 teams that are just going to spend to the cap.
No, I mean, and if you're McDavid, I mean, there has to be an allure, come next summer when you're still in your prime, but probably toward the end of your prime. You're about to hit 30. Let's be honest. In hockey, those prime years are like usually in your 20s. Sometimes in your early 30s, you're still great. He's coming toward the end of his prime. I mean, that's his one opportunity, really. If he wants to go play in a big market, if he wants to go play in New York or play in Chicago, go home to Toronto to play or wherever, he's going to be able to call his shots. Any team is going to clear all the space they can and give him whatever he wants, because that's not only giving you the guy who will still be the best player in the world, but you're going to sell every ticket for as long as he's there, probably. And we can't ignore that. And we will tie things back into the Penguins. Penguins didn't sell all their tickets the last couple of years. That's going to become an issue with the Penguins the longer this rebuild takes. And that's certainly something Kyle Dubas is going to need to consider.
That's actually a question I had for you, Josh, because there's been the rumors going around that, Mario is interested in buying the team back. Him and Burkle are apparently working together. Have you heard, and is there any fire to that smoke? Because there was plenty of, first off, the news dropped midweek last week that said, Mario's interested in buying back, a controlling interest with Burkle.
Mm-hmm.
And then the news, something came out that it looked like FSG is actually considering selling. Like they made a statement, but then there's some rumors that they actually are considering selling. And I posted the GIF of what's his name from the movie Neighbors, whenever he shows his talents, where he gets a massive bulge on his own. That was my GIF reaction to Mario coming back. So is there truth to these rumors? Have you heard anything?
That was the whole city's reaction. And Corey, before we get to that, let's include our sponsor real quick.
Yes.
For 2 reasons, because it's about that time and my phone's on 1%, and he just sent a new ad for
I love it.
For the podcast, so I haven't even read it yet. But he sent me an email, and I just read whatever Bill writes. So here we go. Bill Neofus, our great friend, our great sponsor, neofusinsurance.com, 412-364-3388, located in the North Hills. This is a message from Bill. Let's talk about pets today. Our partner, the Neofus Insurance Group, offers best-in-class pet insurance. I didn't know there was pet insurance through Nationwide Insurance. More than 90 million families in this country own pets, and 7% of households have more than one pet, including mine. Yet only 3% of households carry insurance for their pets. We learn stuff all the time from Bill. On average, pet owners will receive a bill for between $2,000 and $4,000 for emergency vet care during a pet's lifetime, or in my case, in like a 3-month span. But less than 39% of Americans have enough savings to cover $1,000 worth of emergencies. Nationwide's pet insurance helps to offset the cost of routine and emergency medical care and includes discounts on pet prescriptions. Nationwide insures more than 1 million pets and counting, offers 24/7 pet health advice at the vet helpline, and is the only insurer to offer coverage for birds and exotic pets. So you learned something new from Bill. Pet insurance sounds like a good idea to me. 412-364-3388. Give the man a call.
That is a great idea because the lovely Ruby, the mayor of the Fuzz, lasted 15 and a half years thanks to Visa.
That's right.
maybe,
MasterCard takes care of
we
me. So.
maybe it'd have been a little cheaper. Maybe it could have been cash with Bill in the office. So
that's right.
Your pet's insured with Bill.
Yeah, so thank you, Bill. And I know Bill is very happy that the Stanley Cup is staying in the United States of America. I was
just going to ask if that was the case. He strikes me as somebody who'd be really happy that the north of the border is still starving for a Stanley
Cup. He's not a
McDavid
guy. He's just, it's just the way it is.
Like a lot of people just aren't. And
yes, but anyway.
I just really wanted to maintain after the original 6 that we still are tied with Edmonton with 5 cups.
That is correct.
That meant a lot to me. When he gets right down to it, like I kind of like that. So I want, if Jesus gets his, get yours somewhere else.
Yeah, go win a cup in Chicago or something, whatever. Corey's frozen again, so you and I can carry things for a moment. Corey brought up the ownership situation.
We should probably live with. That's the one thing everyone to hear.
Yeah, I know. Here's the deal. Pierre
LeBrun. Sorry, Bill's getting primes right after Bill's ad. We get the real news of the day.
I know, right? Pierre LeBrun, who I work with at the Athletic, he's the one who first broke this story. Listen, Pierre LeBrun's not the kind of guy that's going to run with a rumor or just throw something out there. He's one of the very best in the business. Obviously, there is some kind of smoke to the fire here. Do I think anything is imminent? No, I don't. Have I uncovered anything big? No, not yet. Everything's oddly quiet right now. I'll be honest, from a financial standpoint, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me for Mario or Burkle. They got out. They sold the team for over $900 million. They got their money. I doubt FSG is going to sell the Penguins for a lesser price. I've heard from so many people who are close to Mario that it's not like FSG ran him out of town. It was nothing like that. He never really wanted to be the owner for 30 or 40 years. And from what I had been told, he was just tired of being around the hockey rink every day. He's done it his whole life. And it's not like he owes Pittsburgh anything. So it doesn't really add up. And yet, everything is suddenly so silent and nobody's getting back to you from that group. And Pierre's not the kind of guy who's just going to make up a rumor. I assure you he's not. He is as good as it gets. So I think there is some kind of interest. That's clear. And FSG, I don't get the sense that they're necessarily in it for the long haul. I know there's a lot of rumors out there now. They're going to sell. I don't know that that's a given. I don't know that they're looking to sell, but they don't have any emotional connection to Pittsburgh. These are, it's so sterile down there these days around the Penguins. They're as corporate as it gets. I mean, the Penguins were an investment to them, okay? And they have other investments that are making them more money than the Penguins are right now, frankly. So I don't think they'd be against selling. And we might get to that point. They're not making any money on the Penguins right now, so we'll see. Listen, I hope it happens. We all hope it happens. Who wouldn't want? What a fairy tale thing that would be. And I think we're just going to have to be patient with this story because, like I said, Pierre's not going to make something up. Obviously, there's something there, but I think whatever it is, it's still in the very preliminary stages, if it is, what it potentially could be.
Well, everybody just went crazy last week when it thought that could happen. It was like the greatest thing.
Mario's going to save the Penguins again. I know.
Yeah, like for the fourth time, and it was like the day after my father passed. It was like Big Joe's working from heaven. This is incredible. And then literally,
he's got to go up there and bring the big guy back.
The old in lieu of flowers, we were giving sent to the Lemieux Foundation. So I had Nancy from the foundation emailed me today and said,
Angus,
a few things. A great lady. I was going to say, well, let's put all the money towards getting the team back. but just two things that though. First of all, Ron has more money than God, so he might just want to do it.
He does,
because let's face it, it was just fun for him to be the owner of the Penguins.
Yeah, it was, and with Mario. Obviously, Mario's got his money, his legacy, never been better. doesn't need to do it. But, one thing that is interesting about Mario, like his entire legacy is with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Like it is. That was one of the reasons, everyone thinks, well, he just bought them because they owed him $30 million. And yeah, that was part of it. But I think part of it was also he was preserving his legacy with that franchise in this city. There has never been an athlete more synonymous with a city or with a franchise than Mario Lemieux is with the Pittsburgh Penguins. You literally can't name one, not one. Nobody did what he did in terms of a player and ownership and importance in the community and everything else. So we'll see. They have the money to do it. The exciting thing about that story was, Yager was flying into town the same day. I'm like, oh man, he's a team owner himself. Are we getting some super ownership group here? Now this would be the greatest story ever. Now in classic Yager fashion, he was just going to hang out in Miami afterwards and going to sign at a card show in New York. But we will see. I stress patience with this story. I suspect there is something there, but it's so preliminary right now. I don't want to get anybody's hopes up because I'm not one of these reporters who always will act like I know something when I don't. I don't know yet. Everyone's being quiet.
Well, let's say it's not Lemieux, but it's somebody else. And we've had dealings with FSG, so I'm not gonna, throw them under the bus completely. And it was Lemieux's team or group that, brought in Satan. So
Hextall, for those of you that forget.
Okay.
Beagle Bob Hextall.
But really, anybody, even if it's not, our Lord and Savior, Mario, they can't be worse than what Fenway did. In the sense of like, just, on the public opinion, on gutting out friends, people worked there 20 years, and then they don't have a great track record. I mean, they just traded the one kid to the Giants, who's incredible. I don't know enough about baseball, but I do know the Mookie Betts was like the best baseball player on earth, and they traded him to the Dodgers for not really a good reason, which would seem to me would be like, okay, I won't say Jesus, but let's say somebody traded McKinnon for no good reason,
right?
I mean,
Fenway. Here's the thing,
or what's that, Luka Doncic?
Yeah. Here's the thing with Fenway. Like Fenway hasn't done anything like horribly wrong to the pay. Like they spend to the salary cap. They haven't done anything that should produce outrage from people. But it's funny. Listen, I hear from Penguins fans a lot, whether it be emails, tweets, whatever, about the plight of the team. And I think I mentioned this recently. I never hear them really complain that much about the coaching or Dubas or the players. Especially the season ticket holders, every goddamn one says, I just want Mario to be around. I'd like it better when Mario's in charge. We want Mario around.
Well, we're Yinzers. We want to see him at Giant Eagle. We want to know he's here.
It's just the way it is. He's that important to the franchise. So no matter who the ownership was that followed Mario, no one was going to like them. But then when you look at FSG, and even though they spend money, they're not from Pittsburgh, which is like strike 2 and 3 against them for a lot of Yinzers. Let's be honest. But there's just a kind of a coldness to the way they operate. These are businessmen. That's just the way it is. They're not really around. Dan Muse's press conference last week, there wasn't even a Fenway person there, which I thought was kind of weird. There was no represent. And my big problem with the Penguins right now and the way they're being run, there's nobody in charge. There's no boss. And this is nothing against Kyle, but I mean, Kyle's basically the boss. But he has to run the hockey team. There still should be somebody above him that even he is essentially reporting to, someone who's running the show. I know David Morehouse, could be a polarizing figure. Some people liked him, some didn't, but you knew he was the boss.
Kevin Ackland's going to be gone in like 10 days.
Yeah.
Kevin Ackland brought in. Kevin Ackland did more great things than almost anybody for that organization.
Kevin was the president of business operations, and he has said publicly and privately that it's his decision, but I don't know. I don't know that it is or that it isn't. But the thing about Kevin too, he and Jen Bolano are the only two people left that have any power in that organization who are from Western Pennsylvania. And I think, Pittsburgh people like that. We like having our own people in charge. That's just the way it is. I'm telling you, there's no boss down there right now. I mean, it's just Kyle Dubas running the hockey team, and everything else is just, kind of existing.
And I just don't trust Dubas. I just don't.
Well,
I just, like I said, I don't think he's the sole reason why Toronto is perpetually underachieved for a generation, but I don't know. I know it's a good podcast father to say I don't know, but I have not really been impressed with really anything he's done here.
He still has a lot to prove. I think I've gotten to know him a little bit. I think he's hyper intelligent. I mean, he's a really bright guy. He is incredibly dedicated. Like I've said before, like he's literally in cold hockey arenas in Northern Ontario all the time during the season, scouting people. Like he is completely invested. I think it would be nice though if there were just some people with more experience around him. I mean, he's still a pretty inexperienced young guy who's just, he's running the show. I'm telling you, he especially with Sullivan gone, because I think he would defer to Sullivan quite a bit. And I think Mike had a lot of power, and deservedly so, given what he did in Pittsburgh over the years. But now, with kind of a no-name coach,
that's what I mean.
I mean, listen, and hey, Sid is Sid, and Sid has a lot of power. Sid's going to be 38 years old. He's not going to be around forever.
And Sid's not drafting, and Sid's not making trades.
Right.
If Sid was player, coach, GM, I'd feel a lot better.
Right. So it just feels like a directionless organization in some ways right now. And I took a lot of hell from the Penguins a couple of years ago when I wrote Fenway was kind of absentee owners. I was told, well, they're around a lot. You just don't know it because they keep a low profile. I said, well, that's a problem if I cover the team and I don't know it, because that means the fans don't know it. And there should be some kind of a presence for the fans.
I am going to say one thing, though, that I am happy with Dubas about. And that is the re-signing of Boko Imama.
I know.
That's back. Finally, we're going to get some nuts on that team. I love it.
Oh, I was happy when I heard the news as well. I love Boko. Just a great locker room guy. No, he was a rare source of positive energy last season, and what was a very difficult. Every time he was on the ice, he kind of liked it. There's kind of some energy in the building.
He was like 5-1, I believe, wasn't he, or something like that?
Yeah. No, listen, he's not going to make or break them, but I think it was wise to bring him back. And like I always say about tough guys, I say it all the time. Sid likes having him around. It makes him feel more comfortable. That's all that matters. If you don't like having tough guys around, you think it's a silly concept, it doesn't matter, because Sidney Crosby thinks it's a big deal and it makes him more comfortable. And I think that's a lot more important than what your spreadsheet says.
If you don't think aggression and belligerence matters, then you haven't watched the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, watch the Florida Panthers.
Yeah. Well, like Joe, you were saying about the seeing Seth Jones and everybody in front of the net. It's like, how many times did we complain about that last year? Not having the Penguins having no physical presence in front of the net. Ryan Graves being softer than baby poo. It was just. Sorry, Ryan, if I ever meet you in person, but
he's gonna beat your ass now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. It'll be the first time I'll be like, thank God he's finally fighting somebody. But yeah, I don't know. It is weird, and that's whenever I heard the news, when I saw Pierre's tweet, it gave me it made sense that there might be a change in ownership because they feel rudderless. It's just weird. And Joe, I mean, you kind of meant like. You said it on from the GM front a couple weeks ago after Sullivan left, where you were like, for the first time, I just kind of don't know. And
I don't. I don't feel like there's an adult that it's like, and I just lost my dad. I don't feel like there's someone I can talk to that knows a little more than me. I'm not saying Dubas isn't smart. I'm not saying Dubas doesn't hang out in Calamoots in -5 degrees watching some third line winger. All I'm saying is he's not Craig Patrick. He's not Ray Shero. And he's certainly not JR. And he's not Sullivan. And he hired a guy that it's just like, it's not, I just don't know where the leadership's at. It's only on the ice. You can't do everything.
And the Penguins are they're in such a weird spot right now because like they clearly do need to get younger and rebuild. Like, I think we can all agree on that, whether we want it to take 10 years or not. Like, of course they need that. And yet they still do have all these older guys on the team. And now they have a young coach. They're just kind of all over the place. And, I really feel like in conversations I've had with Kyle, and I guess we can kind of merge into the Geno talk here. Kyle wants to rebuild. Like, Kyle wants to go young. Kyle, I don't think he feels any real loyalty to the romance of having, these guys who have been here forever. And I don't blame him. Like, I get it. I mentioned this on Mark Madden's show today. I was talking with Ray Shiro years ago during Yager Watch, and Ray said, I don't give a shit about his history in Pittsburgh. I'm trying to win cups. I don't care about any of that other stuff. And from Kyle's standpoint, you kind of do have to think that way, because he shouldn't really be here for a nostalgia tour. But there's also a certain way to handle it where you have to, respect certain guys and do things properly because it's the Penguins and it's a superstar franchise.
Well, Josh, if he really wanted to go younger, like he says, and that's the real plan, and he's the real genius, and he has this, grand scheme of what's going to happen when these old guys go, then just make it happen. You say, Geno, you're playing one more year. You say, you know what? I don't give a damn where Carlson goes. I'll give you 2 second-round draft picks to go with them, and goodbye. And then you say, hey, Letang, we're buying you out. It's not my money. It's some guy in Boston's money anyway. And then we start rebuilding July 1st, and that's it. But no, he's maybe pamming, and I don't know. It's going to just get.
Joe got so worked up and muted himself.
Waiting, Josh.
No, I mean,
the 5 more years.
No, I mean, I think that's a very valid point. I really do, Joe. You can't half-ass a rebuild. Do you do it or you don't, right? Now it's different with Sid, because
I didn't say Sid.
I know. With him, it's different. I'm fascinated to see what this team looks like 3 weeks from now, because I do think there's a real chance Carlson gets traded. I've talked with so many people around the NHL who have told me, the way he played in the Four Nations games really opened up a lot of eyes. And somebody, I think, will take him. And I think there's a real chance he's traded this summer. The interesting ones are Raquel and Rust. And I don't – and I'm not saying they're going to get traded. I kind of don't think they'll get traded this summer, if I had to guess. Do I think they'll both see the conclusion of their contracts in Pittsburgh? Now, that's a different story. Probably not. But then you have to consider Sid. You trade both of those guys. I've always been one who said Sid's never going to play anywhere else. And he's told me he doesn't want to play anywhere else, so I believe him. You lose both of those guys. Now, that might be a little different. And I would wonder at that point if he'd be like, you know what, this is not good.
But even the Geno subject, right? Even that, I don't like the way that's. I know the Geno guy, but it's like, okay, you can pretend. You don't have to say, hey, we're not going to sign him next year. Let him play. Even if you tell him in July, hey, we're not going to sign you, but whatever. If you want to look elsewhere, you want to trade, we can. You have to announce it. Like, what's the point of that?
No. I mean, he hasn't announced it. I mean, that's I reported that he's not going to give him a new contract because that's what I've heard.
Right.
But and listen, Geno's a franchise icon, and you have to treat those guys a certain way. But at the same time, like, I've had a lot of people on Twitter, tell me I'm an asshole because how dare you suggest Geno shouldn't get to play as long as he wants. Like, no, if you're rebuilding, you probably shouldn't be giving the 40-year-old guy with 2 knee surgeries another contract. Like, you do have to move on at some time. And I promise you, if Letang didn't have any years left on his contract, he wouldn't be getting another contract from Kyle Dubas. There's not a doubt in my mind about that.
Yeah, no, I just almost think, Josh, I just almost think it's common sense that he wasn't going to get it.
Right.
Like, it's almost like you didn't have to say it. You know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't. I wouldn't think Dubas was a cold-hearted moron. If you know what, Geno, I think the time is done.
Right.
I think Geno thinks.
I just think of all the proclamations he could have made June 5th. I just think maybe that was like, hey, that's the guy you're going after, the legend.
Speaking of legends, by the way, I just heard from our sponsor who's up watching, who wanted us to be reminded that McDavid was a -4 tonight. So he was just throwing that out there. But
love it.
but yeah,
Love
I mean, it's just that's the thing though. It's a dicey situation, and if you're Dubas, like the Letang and Malkin stuff is really interesting because I would understand why he wants to go young and move on from those guys. They're not what they were. We all know that. But they're also Sid's two best friends on the team. And, Sid's no malcontent. He's no coach killer or a GM killer. But, like, there's just people who, just fans, I think, don't necessarily understand that you have to consider you're still dealing with people. And you don't want Sid to ever say, hey, I want out, I'm done. And so you have to balance that a little bit. It's a delicate situation.
Another reason why I don't know why it made good sense. But yeah, well, he's not coming back. So hey, Sid, take him to every restaurant you want this year on the road because it's not going to happen next year. Right. I mean, it just seemed unnecessary. It just seemed like saying something mean to a girlfriend as you're breaking up with her.
And Gino deserves a farewell tour if this isn't his last year. That's what I'm
saying. You have to say, yeah, and you never, I don't know. It just seemed a little bit
Gino will come out and say that because I'm not in the locker room like you are, Josh. So, but watching him play in interviews he's done, I get the feeling he kind of knows he's at the end here.
I do. I don't know that he'll come out and say in September, hey, this is my last year. He may. I kind of doubt it. There's kind of a shy side to him that I think would maybe be uncomfortable getting the farewell tour all season long, if I had to guess. But I really think for the last couple of years, I have sensed that he's been a little bit down on himself. Like a couple of times I've asked him about certain players or the league, and he always says, oh, so fast, league so fast now, slow guy like me. And it's kind of a self-deprecating thing that he does, but you can tell he means it too. And that's got to be hard. You could make an argument, guys, from like 2008 to 2012. He was absolutely Crosby and Ovechkin's equal. Yeah, and there were times when he was the best player in the sport, I think, in that time period. He was that great.
There's other people in hockey media and ex-players that say the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, not only is he one of the best 100 players of all time, he's probably one of the best, 30 players of all time. Yeah. He was that great in his prime. He absolutely was. So I think it's so important to recognize that. And he's still an okay number 2 center. He'll still put up some points, and he had nothing to play with this past year. But I also think with players that great, they don't like to embarrass themselves. And I don't think he feels that yet, but I do think he feels like, yeah, I'm coming toward the end. I mean, he sees the direction the league's going in, and the foot speed's the one thing he just doesn't have anymore. And I know that must be frustrating for him, but it's just the way it is.
It makes me, I keep thinking back. I mean, the what if Sid didn't get concussions and everything like that. But we never think about Gino. If it wasn't for his knee injuries, what could have been. I mean, he bounced back so well after the Tyler Myers hit that took his knee out, and he was MVP in 2012, right?
Yes, that was his MVP year. Yeah.
And I will say, just selfish, I have a little bit of a soft spot for Gino because those of you that know, I was an usher at the arena. I would work the wives and girlfriend section a lot. So I got to see his parents pretty frequently and have little chats with them. And it was a lot during the 2012 season. And it was just kind of nice to see, he seems like a nice kid, a nice guy, I mean, same age as me, but, nice family, and he was easy to root for. And like you said, he was absolutely their equal. I think there were even a handful of GMs that off the record said in 2004 they would have picked him over Ovechkin.
Craig Patrick told me that once, and I don't know if Craig was full of shit or not, because I think it would have been hard to turn down Ovechkin and the box office appeal that he would have brought the Penguins in that time. But Malkin is obviously one of the greatest second overall picks of all time, and he would have been the number 1 pick in almost any other year. Sensationally underrated, underappreciated around the league, Joe. If he was from, Kitchener, Ontario or whatever, there'd be statues of him everywhere in Canada. I mean, and my favorite thing about Gino, for all the great things that he's done, when you go back and look at the old days when he was in his prime, when the Penguins were in their prime, nobody was better in the big games than Gino. One of the great big game playoff performers of all time. And I was just thinking today about the game he played in Detroit in 2009 in Game 7 when Sid got hurt. You go back and watch the defense he played in that game, the two-way play. That's the one thing McDavid, as great as he is, like we never see that from him. And the way Malkin shut down that great Red Wings team, like I'll always remember that performance. He's a Mount Rushmore guy. He's an all-time great, and he certainly deserves to be respected. But I really do think this is his final NHL season.
Yeah,
exactly. But he is on Mount Rushmore. So it's kind of just like, I mean, that's what I mean. Like you don't want to treat our defensemen that don't play defense without any respect. You go ahead, but Mr. Dubas, like not Gino. Like Gino's a different. Like I know there's still some girls that are now women with 3 kids. They're in Letang's corner, but Gino's Gino.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Gino jerseys still. There's a lot of Gino's Gino. Like you're making an example of the wrong guy if you want to make friends in Pittsburgh.
Not only at worst the 4th best Penguin ever, but also one of the 3 or 4 most beloved Penguins ever, I think.
Yes.
And there was always I mean, Sid, right? But I always felt like the fan base, and especially the fans at Mellon Arena and PPG Paints Arena, there's always been this visceral connection with Gino and the fans.
Mm-hmm.
When, they would start chanting his name and he would start weaving through everybody on his way through center ice. And you knew he was going to score a goal when he got angry or when they start chanting his name. Like, we never saw that with Sid or Mario and Yager. Not that obviously fans love them. But Gino just had this different kind of connection, even though he never spoke the language all that well. Like, there was a different feel when he was on the ice and the relationship he had with fans. It's going to be a very sad day when he's done here.
Yeah, it's like it's and we'll have his retirement episode next year at this time. Well, probably in April, the way they're playing. But that being said, Gino just has the witch gene. Mm-hmm. Sid's one of the 2 or 3 greatest players ever that's mortal. Sid's got that Lemieux, Fedorov, that witch. Ovi doesn't have it. Only a few guys have the witch gene that just do things that it's magic.
Yeah.
I've always maintained, and listen, I think Sid's one of the 5 best players ever. So this is no knock on him. And I think Ovechkin's, you rank him wherever you want. It goes without saying what he's done. I've always said Malkin was the most talented of the 3 physically. He could do things that the other 2 couldn't do. That doesn't mean he had Sid's IQ or Ovi's just, pure power, whatever you want to call it. But Malkin, just in terms of physical gifts, if we were designing a guy in a video game, like Malkin's prime Malkin, he was an extraordinary hockey player. And you combine that with his ability to rise to the occasion in big games, just a unique superstar.
That goal he scored against Tampa Bay, the coast to coaster, split the D, it was like Mario-esque. I mean, how many times did he have Mario-esque goals in his career?
Yeah, and other than when Sid was hurt, when he centered Rust and Snake, they were a great line as well. Yep. He always got sloppy seconds. The guys that came to town and then Sid didn't want to play with them or couldn't play with them, and somehow they played pretty good. James Neal, Mr. November James Neal played pretty good with Gino. Obviously, Phil played really good. It seemed like it was easier to play with Gino than Sid at times.
Well, at times it was, I think. And it will go on Gino's Hall of Fame plaque, I hope, and it should, that when Sidney Crosby was out of the lineup, his points per game number went up. That's all for anybody who thinks, well, he got to play against second line players because of Sid, blah. No, when Sid was out and the other team focused on Malkin's points per game escalated. That's all you need to know about how great he was. And also it is, and what a great competitor he has always been. And it going back to, this coming season too, it really truly would be a shame if Malkin's last ever playoff game was Game 7 in New York in 2022. And he told me that last year. He said, I can't retire until I get back to the playoffs. It's going to drive me crazy. Then you look at the current composition of this team. It's like, It's going to be tough this year.
Josh,
It's going to
were
be
you the
tough
one
next
who wrote
season.
Is your wife gonna like Wilkes-Barre?
They can make the playoffs down
The
there.
viewership. I have. Here's something that now is Gaunch. He was relieved of his duties.
Vancouver.
Wouldn't it be nice to have Gaunch fill out the staff?
It would.
Teach some defense. Teach how to run a power play.
The only
And
problem,
hang out with Gino, nice little like retirement party
it'd be
there.
great. The only problem with Gonchar is always, and I don't know his family situation. He lives in Dallas and he never wants to go anywhere full time. He still likes to live in Dallas and kind of would go to Vancouver part of the time, kind of like he did with Pittsburgh.
Oh, I thought he was behind the bench, Josh. Am I wrong?
He may have been for a year. I mean, for some games, and I know he's still based in Dallas.
Okay,
and that was always kind of. Because remember,
pocket.
In Pittsburgh, like Jacques Martin was always on the bench, and Gaunch would be at some games and most of the games, certainly all the playoff games. But I've also, this is no knock on Jacques Martin, who I love, but so many defensemen from those teams told me, we love Jacques, but he didn't really do that much. Like Gaunch is an unbelievable coach. Like the defensemen swore by him.
Mm-hmm.
No, that would be quite a coup, and it would be a great idea. And if I'm Dan Muse or Kyle Dubas, I'm absolutely giving Sergei Gonchar a call.
I mean, look what he did with
Preston Schultz. Had my phone number. I think I just make this team so much better.
No, I mean, it's.
I didn't even want paid, Dubas. I just want to help.
Well,
yeah, Joe do it for free.
I had a little microphone issue earlier. I was going to say, Joe.
It happened again.
He got a microphone issue right when he talked about his microphone issue. That was unbelievable.
How's it now? You hear me?
You're good. Go for it.
Jesus. This StreamYard is not having a good night. But anyways, the whenever we were talking about FSG not having somebody here, I was like tired.
Just wasn't meant to be, Joe. I don't
Maybe
know.
John Henry controls the internet.
Like I don't doubt that Corey just said something absolutely magnificent there.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
I can't take three.
Point being, Joe should be the Dan Rooney of the Penguins for FSG. He should. That should be your job, Joe.
The Dan Rooney, not the one they got now.
Yeah. No. You be, you be the guy. You be the chief. You be the one up there, drinking and watching over the team, making all the calls. I think everybody be okay with that.
President of the Penguins has been arrested in Philadelphia again for barging into the Flyers locker room.
No, I wouldn't go to Philly. No, I didn't even want. It's like a sounding board. Is this a good idea? No, it's not a good idea. Bring back Gaunch.
No, I love that idea. Actually, I do. But it'll be interesting just to wrap this segment up. With Malkin, it's going to be an emotional thing for the fans because I know how much people love him, and I'm sure he doesn't. If this is indeed his last NHL season, and I do believe it's his last season in Pittsburgh, he's not going to want to go out on a bad note. So I bet he comes into camp in great shape, and you're going to get the best that he has left. But the fact is, he does turn 39 at the end of July. He has had 2 reconstructive knee surgeries. So unfortunately, we saw him get old a lot faster before Sid.
Bill, I apologize for saying this because you've heard it on every single show you sponsored for the last year and a half. But it's $6 million. He's a good deal at second line center.
He's fine.
He's not Bennett and he's not Lindell, but it's $6 million. He puts up decent numbers, and every time he took 10 days off and came back, he looked magnificent.
Great. No, honestly, if you played him just 55 or 60 games, I bet he'd be close to a point per game guy. I do. Yeah. He just can't, play the full schedule anymore, I don't think. And that happens with players who age, obviously. Put it this way. He's not their problem.
No.
Like they're not a non-playoff team because of him.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair.
There's I don't know, maybe 15 or 16 other problems. The reasons that they're not a playoff.
There are 7 or 8 rotten contracts on that roster right now, and his really isn't one of them.
No,
especially when you consider this is the last year.
Well, let's be perfectly honest. Okay, Gene, I'm sorry. You have Sid, Raquel, Snake. I like Tommy Novak. I'm going to give Tommy Novak the benefit, a big benefit of the doubt. And then you got McGroarty and you got Kovanen. Can you think of anybody else you really? It's really like, yay. Because Brunick, I'm not
America
going to count
eventually.
Brunicky, and I'm not going to count Pickering because they're really not NHL guys yet.
Right now,
So,
I mean, as they're currently constituted, the bottom six is absolutely terrible. The blue line's absolutely terrible.
right.
And
That's what I'm saying. So other than like
goaltending,
5 or 6 guys I named, I don't. So Gino's really the problem.
right?
Like
Exactly.
we have to
No,
announce, hey, we don't want him back. He might score.
right. And I understand why you wouldn't want to bring a 40-year-old Malkin back. Like I get it, but for anybody who, and I don't think the Penguins front office looks at him as the problem. They know how bad this roster is right now. I'm just curious to see in the next couple of weeks what Dubas does to address it. Yeah, he wants to go young, but he told me in Buffalo last week at the combine that he plans on being active in the trade market. He came right out and said it. He usually doesn't say stuff like that. We'll see what he has up his sleeve. The Penguins have over $20 million in cap space. They have a lot of draft picks. They're not going to use all of them. They have those as trade assets. I understand that it's a rebuild and it will take some time, but there's no reason you can't get a little aggressive and try to actually be better next season. I don't think there's any harm in that.
That's all I've been saying. I want to ask you a question about the no, I'm saying, do you see this is totally off the board, it's not the Penguins, but did you see that Yagerland Chechnya is allowed to be in the Olympics? Which I am all for, but then I can't Russia be.
I don't know. Like the whole world's almost at war right now anyway. What the hell? Let's just let Russia in the Olympics for God's sake.
And I thought it was neat that Sammy Reinhart was one of the top 6 for Canada, and he went out and got the.
And then he goes out and scores 4 goals.
Yeah.
How about that performance? Unbelievable! Yeah. Oh my God! Yeah.
Oh my. Well,
and I'm just thankful that we didn't have a holler back as announced as one of the 6 guys, because we didn't talk about this last week. But thank God they didn't have an award ceremony, because how embarrassing would it be to get the Hart and the Vezina and know that you absolutely sucked in the playoffs. Like that's the biggest. I've seen guys like blow playoff series. I've seen guys like not come up short, but I've never seen a guy that gets that right in the history of the NHL. Has anyone ever won the Hart, the Vezina, and then been an absolute disaster?
Probably not.
The last second goal away from being a one and done.
Again, no, I'm one of the voters for that award. I actually voted. It was a very difficult MVP vote this year. I voted for Leon Draisaitl, who was the best player I saw all year. I was off this year though. Lane Hudson won Rookie of the Year. I voted for Mr. Celebrini in San Jose. I was one of only 11 people out of like 200 who voted for him. I thought it was an obvious choice. What do I know?
That is such Montreal horse shit.
It's really weird.
I mean, I'll tell you what, though. Lane Hudson blew my mind.
He's wonderful.
He was wonderful, but he was a Mac with Celebrini.
That's what I thought. I mean, to me, it was an obvious. I didn't think twice about that one. I guess everyone else did. But yeah, that's very interesting awards. But the cool thing about the Stanley Cup is they don't vote on that.
No,
the old Mario thing.
Yeah, that's right. You win that one fair and square, and boy, did the Florida Panthers ever do that tonight.
Corey, I do have a point, though. I did jump off what you said. How he was 1 second away from being one and done. He would look better if he was one and done. The longer they played, the worse he looked.
That's a very good point. He kept. Oh my!
It's very true.
Yeah, as long as we don't have him in the Olympics, I think we'll be fine. Yeah, let's let Russia in, because what the hell? Everything else is going to hell. So
that's right.
Maybe if we trade Russ, then Sully be allowed to pick him for the United States team anyway.
Oh,
yeah.
I saw he snuck in his brother. He snuck in his son-in-law. McAvoy did.
Yeah,
that's right. No, that's absolutely right.
No. Well, hey, that'll do it for us. It's boy.
Thanks for staying up late with us, everyone.
We had an active chat going here.
Did we address every question? There was some good ones.
We kind of got some of them, but the one that I wanted to bring up, it's not, really an in-depth answer going to be, but it was asked multiple times, so I have to throw it out there. Tristan Jarry to Edmonton. Is this happen now?
I will say this. I don't know. Jarry lives in Edmonton in the offseason. He won a Memorial Cup for the Oil Kings a decade ago. The Oilers still have goaltending issues. I think there's a chance he could be traded this summer. I'm not saying he will be, but with the cap going up the way it is, with teams as desperate for goaltending as they are, and he did play pretty well in the last month of the season for all of his inconsistencies. I don't think he's going to be traded, but in January, I would have said no chance in hell. Now it's like, it wouldn't totally shock you, especially if the Penguins threw in a sweetener. So it's something to consider.
I wouldn't. I mean, I was sitting there watching the Edmonton Oilers go back and forth with their goaltenders through the whole finals, going,
They
yeah,
need a goalie. I mean, they need a lot of things still, but they need a goalie. That's
yeah,
clear.
yeah. And you know what?
Do you think though that Jari is? And I kind of like Jean-Luc Picard. I don't think that Jari is discernibly better than either of those two goaltenders.
No,
Well,
but they can lie themselves into believing it.
It only takes one sucker, Joe.
Right. No, but I'm just like, I just don't see it happen. I see Jari being traded. I see Edmonton trying to upgrade, but I just don't see Jari going to Edmonton.
His reputation around the league is not great at the moment.
No. And speaking of Edmonton and how bad their team was, I thought about it. I was like, to defend my point on bringing McDavid here, if you take McDavid if you switch McDavid and Crosby, Edmonton's probably the Penguins. Like, I mean, well, like Leon minus Leon. Okay, Leon being like an older Malkin. Like their supporting cast really isn't. I don't know. That's
a very interesting question, though, and I know it's like 5 a.m, but does Crosby's obviously he doesn't have the blazing speed, but does his overall leadership just make them a different team?
I think so. I mean, that's.
I'm not knocking Lee. I'm not knocking Jesus's, but Crosby's the ultimate leader.
Well, he is, and I'm not going to knock McDavid either. But the reality is, he's never won anything at any level. The only time he ever won anything in his life was the Four Nations, in which history will remind us, of course, well, Crosby was the captain of that team. And that's not fair to him, but that's the way it's going to be perceived until he finally wins something. So I'll tell you what, he's not beating those Florida Panthers anytime soon. I'm sorry. That team is a different breed.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, that'll do it for us, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate all of you that have tuned in. 3,000 people have nothing else to do and watch.
We love all the fans. We love Bill. And I'm going to say, can you believe this is it? Until I'm looking at this computer screen, watching Team A versus Team B with Team C off ice workouts.
Oh boy! But the fun thing, our show next week will be a couple of days before the draft, so we'll have a lot of draft stuff and.
Maybe some big news from
trade talk too.
Yeah.
Well, when Burkle buys the team back, we will have an emergency pod.
Special emergency podcast. We'll go 2 hours easy if you want that night.
Oh my God.
Absolutely.
I won't be able to speak. I said my smile will be breaking my jaw.
Well, from your lips to God's ears. So, Big Joe, Joe, we rest in peace. Your father.
And I want to publicly thank. I mean, these guys, not only are they great on the podcast, and they're great friends of mine, and they showed up at my dad's funeral, and it was very, very, very nice of them. And prayers for Corey's kid tomorrow.
Yes,
he's going through a big deal. So,
it's nice. I got a nice message from. I got a nice message from someone down at the Penguins. I don't know how they saw. I think they saw on Twitter or something, and they said, "Just want to let you know that we're all pulling for him down here." The Pirates actually sent a message too.
Oh, that's bad luck.
The Steelers are the only ones, but I don't want to
leave that one.
Aaron Rodgers is going to tell him to take like shrooms or something, and
he could get them for you.
Yeah.
But seriously, best of luck. And Joe, we wouldn't have missed it for the world. The Bartnick family is good people. It was good to see everyone, even on a sad occasion.
Angela's, everything's good. We're moving.
I feel really good about
moving forward.
I feel really good about Pittsburgh sports having someone like your dad right next to God there to be able to. Because I swear, like one of my friends in high school, like right when we started in college or towards the end of college, his dad passed away summer of 2008. And I remember the Pirates won like a handful of games in a row. And I looked at him. I was like, what's your dad doing? But then I was like, oh, that's nuts. And then the Steelers and the Penguins win the Super Bowl and the Penguins win the Stanley Cup. And I told him, like, dude, like, what is your dad doing? You know,
Yeah, I talked about some of his. I kept it short and sweet, but I had a good set at my dad's funeral. I really did. People loved it, but we talked a little. One hockey story, one Steelers story, so it was good. But that's, like I said, thank you, thank all the fans, and we'll hopefully be back with some big news from Josh. Even if just Josh is gonna have tons of big.
There's tons of news. Trust me,
you're working hard. Knock on wood, you're working.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, well, that'll do it for us tonight, guys, and we will talk to you next week.